Okay, let's start today with something that, well, we absolutely hate talking about.
hmm
It's essentially the one universal truth we all share, whether we like it or not. Pain, suffering.
It is the great equalizer. I mean, no matter your status, your bank account, or your location, it finds you.
It really does. And whether it's a broken leg, a broken heart, or just, doom scrolling the news and feeling that general crushing weight of the world's brokenness, it's unavoidable.
Right.
But here's the thing that really bothers me, and I know I'm guilty of it too. We are socially and biologically just conditioned to run away from it.
We are. We try to fix it, ignore it, numb it, or binge watch it away.
Exactly.
Which is a completely natural human instinct. I mean, we are wired to avoid threats. But the core question of today's deep dive is a difficult one. Does that resistance actually make the suffering worse?
That is the big question. So today we're on a mission to answer one massive thing. How do we move from desperation to delight without denying the darkness?
Mm.
And I want to be clear right off the bat. We're not just going to throw bumper sticker platitudes at this. If I hear everything happens for a reason one more time, I might scream.
We will definitely avoid that, I promise.
Good.
Yeah.
Because we have a stack of sources today that is honestly a little intimidating. We're pulling from a really wide spectrum here.
We really are. We're synthesizing the philosophy of Andrew Solomon, who has written some of the definitive works on identity and trauma, with the spiritual mechanics of Michael Singer.
The author of The Untethered Soul.
That's the one. Then we're layering in philosophical theology from Eleanor Stump and some incredibly raw, hard-to-read personal narratives from Vanitha Risner, a polio survivor.
And we also have some great insights from the Connected Life podcast and Sun Valley Community Church.
It's a lot.
It's a heavy stack, but the promise here is that we aren't just looking for comfort. We're looking at the mechanics of resilience. Like, how do you physically and spiritually metabolize pain so it builds you rather than breaks you?
Right.
Because honestly, sometimes it feels like it's just breaking us.
To understand how to stop it from breaking us, we actually have to start with physics.
Physics.
Specifically, the physics of how we perceive reality. This is where Michael Singer comes in.
Yeah, this part tripped me up a bit. Singer talks about seeing the world, but he breaks it down in a way that, makes you question your own eyes.
He does. He reminds us that, strictly speaking, you don't see objects. You see light bouncing off atoms.
Okay.
That light hits your retina, travels up the optic nerve, and then your mind renders an image. It's exactly like pixels being rendered on a computer screen.
Okay, but hold on. I get the science of optics. But if a car is speeding toward me, that's not just a rendering.
Mm-hmm.
That's a 2-ton metal reality. It feels like saying it's just rendered isn't just the actual danger.
The car is real, the atoms are real, but the interpretation of the event happens inside. Because the image is rendered inside your mind, it gets filtered through all your stored data.
Your past traumas, your fears.
Your insecurities, all of it. So a neutral event outside can become a massive threat inside because of how your specific software renders it.
So 2 people could see the exact same event,
Yeah.
but because they have different stored data, one person renders it as a catastrophe and the other just a nuisance.
Exactly. And this leads to Singer's dam analogy, which is crucial for understanding why we suffer. He argues that suffering really kicks in when we resist reality.
Resist reality. Unpack that.
Think of the Hoover Dam. Energy, emotional energy, events, words spoken to you is like a river flowing toward you.
Okay.
When we use our willpower to say, no, I don't want this to be happening, or I refuse to accept that he said that, we build a dam. We mentally and physically tighten up to stop the flow.
But the water doesn't stop.
No. Physics dictates that energy cannot be destroyed, so when you block it, it just gets stuck inside you.
It creates pressure.
Yes,
Yeah.
it becomes stored trauma.
Yeah.
Singer's point is that letting it be isn't about being a doormat or letting people walk all over you. It's about internal physics.
So it's about,
It's allowing the energy of an event to pass all the way through your nervous system so you remain clear.
I see the logic, but I have to play devil's advocate here. Letting it flow sounds, passive. If I just let everything pass through me, am I just a victim watching life happen? Oh, well, the house burned down, just letting that energy pass. That doesn't feel like resilience. It feels like resignation.
That is a very valid critique, and that is exactly why we need Andrew Solomon. He offers the necessary counterpoint. He talks less about allowing and more about building.
Okay, so Solomon is the action, to Singer's acceptance.
In a way, yeah. Solomon makes this brilliant distinction between finding meaning and forging meaning. We often talk about finding meaning as if it's an Easter egg hidden under a rock. Like, if you just look hard enough, you'll find the secret note explaining why you got fired.
Right. Like, oh, I found the reason I suffered. It was over here behind the couch the whole time.
Right. Solomon says, no, that's a fantasy. You have to forge meaning. You have to make it.
It's an act of creation.
It's an act of creation, like a blacksmith. He uses his own childhood as an example. He was bullied relentlessly. They called him Percy as a slur on the school bus.
I heard that part. Percy. Percy.
Yeah.
For 45 minutes straight, every single day. That is just brutal for a kid.
It is. And he says he survived childhood through avoidance and endurance. He literally graduated high school without ever stepping foot in the cafeteria because the social terror was too high.
Wow.
But later in life, he realized that avoidance wasn't enough. You can't just endure. You have to take those traumatic bricks and build an identity.
There was that incredible quote from the mother of disabled children he interviewed that really stopped me in my tracks.
It's profound, isn't it? She said people always tell her God doesn't give you more than you can handle, or that her children are a gift. But she corrected them. She said her children are a gift not because they were preordained to be, but because that is what we have chosen.
That is what we've chosen. That puts the power back in your hands. It's an active choice to forge value out of difficulty.
It is.
But, and this is a big but, this brings us to the theology of it all. If we are forging meaning, does that mean the pain itself is good?
Yeah.
Because I struggle with that.
Yeah.
Is the suffering a gift? Because telling someone their pain is a gift feels like a slap in the face.
You are absolutely right to be skeptical of that. This is where we have to be very careful with our language and where the sources from Sun Valley Community Church and philosopher Eleanor Stump are really helpful.
Okay.
They make a critical distinction. The result might be a gift, but the pain is still bad.
Okay, let's dig into that. Start with the leprosy analogy from Sun Valley, because that was visceral.
It's a tough image, but it works. The pastor talks about a doctor who works with lepers. Now, we know leprosy destroys nerve endings, so you can't feel pain.
Right.
He tells a story about a man who ran on a broken leg to get to the front of a dinner line.
Oh, no.
He couldn't feel the break, so he kept running, grinding the bone, until the leg was destroyed and had to be amputated.
Oof.
The insight here is that pain is a gift only in the sense that it is a warning system.
It tells you something is wrong.
Exactly. It tells you something is misaligned. Without the pain, you destroy yourself.
So pain is necessary information. But just because the warning system is useful doesn't mean the pain feels good. I actually loved the sucks rule that the pastor mentioned. It felt so honest.
The sucks rule is essential.
Yeah. Basically, when a friend is suffering, don't quote verses at them. Don't try to fix it.
Yeah.
Just look them in the eye and say, man, that sucks. I'm sorry.
It sounds simple, but it validates the reality of the pain. It acknowledges that the rendering we talked about earlier is a painful one. And Eleanor Stump takes this even deeper with her philosophical theology. She uses a chemotherapy metaphor that I think answers your question about whether suffering is good.
Okay, let's unpack the chemo idea.
She argues that suffering is like chemotherapy. If you have cancer, you are grateful for the chemo because it might save your life. You willingly go to the clinic.
Of course.
But the chemo itself, it's toxic. It's literally poison. You don't love the chemo. You love the life it saves.
That makes a lot of sense. So suffering never becomes good in and of itself. You don't have to pretend to like it.
Exactly. It remains awful. But like chemo, it enables something. For Stump, the thing it enables is a deeper personal union. She talks about second-person connection.
Second person, you mean like I and you?
Precisely. Relating to God or others as you, not talking about God like a concept, but talking to God. Suffering strips away all the buffers.
The comfort, the distraction.
The polite small talk, all the stuff that usually keeps us isolated. It forces that face-to-face vulnerability.
It's true. When you're really hurting, you don't care about the weather or sports. You get real fast.
Right. And Stump points out that early Christians didn't ask, why is there evil, the way we do. We ask it like a logic puzzle. They viewed suffering as a privilege of closeness. It was a radical shift from how we think today. They saw it as participating in the divine experience, not as a sign that the divine had abandoned them.
That's a beautiful concept, participating in the divine experience. But I have to be the voice of the person listening to this, who is in the middle of a crisis right now.
Yes.
Because when you're in the fire, you don't feel close to the divine, you feel abandoned. You feel like the phone line has been cut.
It does. It feels like silence. And that brings us to the solar eclipse analogy from The Connected Life with Justin and Abby. I think this visual really helps bridge that gap between what we know and what we feel.
Yeah, I like this one. So imagine God's love, or if you're not religious, think of it as the goodness of the universe is the sun.
It's constant. It's burning. It's always there.
But pain is the moon passing in front of it.
And the shadow is real. The darkness is absolutely real. You aren't imagining the dark. But the sun hasn't moved.
Right.
It hasn't changed its nature. But our nervous system, that's a different story.
This is where the biology comes back in. Justin and Abby talk about the Jenga tower of the nervous system. They mentioned a host who had, I think, 20 to 25 traumatic events back to back.
Right. And eventually, the Jenga tower collapses. You enter threat mode.
And when you are in threat mode,
Yeah.
your brain's confirmation bias kicks in, right?
Yeah.
You start looking for evidence that you are unsafe.
Exactly. Your brain is a prediction machine. If you are in pain, your brain predicts more pain. You stop seeing the sun and you only see the shadow.
You start gathering evidence that you are alone. So we have to consciously fight that bias. But they also talk about living in the bittersweet, which brings us to my absolute favorite weird detail from this research stack. The Red Wiener story.
I was hoping we'd get to the red wieners. It's such a specific, odd little story.
We have to tell it. So Justin's grandfather passed away, and they're remembering him. And apparently, instead of cookies for Santa, this grandfather insisted on leaving out red hot dogs.
Because that's what he liked. He figured, why would Santa want a dry cookie when he could have a delicious red hot dog?
It's pure logic. And the host remembers waking up in the morning, and sure enough, a hot dog would be half eaten. It's this weird, funny, specific memory. But the takeaway is that holidays and life in general are never just one thing. It's the bitter and the sweet on the same plate.
That is the key. We often pause our joy, waiting for the sorrow to leave. We think, I'll be happy when this grief is over.
Right.
But the Red Wiener story reminds us that life is messy and mixed. You can have the grief of a lost loved one and the absurdity of a red hot dog at the exact same moment.
You don't have to wait for the bitter to go away to taste the sweet.
Yeah.
That's actually really liberating.
It is.
But speaking of the bitter and the sweet, I think we need to address the elephant in the room. We've talked about bullying, we've talked about general loss, but what about when the suffering is catastrophic?
Yeah.
We need to talk about Vinitha Risner, because her story is, honestly, it makes you want to curl up in a ball just hearing it.
Vinitha is a walking testament to resilience, but you're right, her baseline is tragedy. She contracted polio as an infant in India, but it was a medical error.
A misdiagnosis.
Right, she was misdiagnosed with typhoid. The doctor gave her cortisone, which basically acted like rocket fuel for the polio virus.
So a mistake destroyed her body. She spent her childhood in Shriners hospitals, separated from her parents, and then years later, she gets diagnosed with post-polio syndrome.
And the way the doctors described it to her is terrifying. They told her that her energy was like a bank account with limited funds.
Right.
Every time she moved, every time she pushed herself, she was making a permanent withdrawal. Once the funds were gone, they were gone. She would be completely immobile.
Can you imagine being told that simply living your life, picking up a cup of coffee, is bankrupting your body? And then on top of that, she loses an infant son due to another medical error, and her husband leaves her.
It's what we might call a job-like pile-on. It's relentless.
So, honestly, how do you actually forge meaning in that kind of fire? It feels almost disrespectful to look for a tool or a strategy in that much wreckage. How did she not just give up?
She almost did. But one of the most powerful insights Vinitha and her sister Shalini discuss is the difference between gratitude and lament.
We're always told to be grateful, right? Count your blessings. It could be worse.
But if you start there, you're building a dam. You cannot bypass the anger. You cannot bypass the grief. Shalini describes finding Vinitha's prayer journal from that dark period. She called it a scream journal.
A scream journal.
She said it looked like someone had poured black ink on the pages. It was a tear-stained, messy watercolor of rage.
So she wasn't writing, "Thank you, God, for this lesson"?
No. Vinitha admits her first question to God was, why did you do this? And that is a valid, necessary question. You have to get the poison out. You have to scream before you can sing.
That is such a relief to hear. There was also a profound moment for Shalini, the sister. She was watching all this happen, trying so hard to fix Vinitha, to help her.
And manage the pain, yes, and she was burning out. A friend gave her some advice that changed everything. The friend said, Shalini, You need to resign as your sister's savior. She already has one.
Resign as your sister's savior. That is, wow.